Those who want to belong to the PDP as an opposition party should go to info@iampdp.org. Finally, we call on Nigerians of good conscience to ignore persons who are clearly agents and proxies of the APC, masquerading as members, whereas they have already endorsed President Tinubu for a second term. And which is why they could not even hide. Their conventions had to come side by side. One had to shift to Friday to accommodate the other one to start the next day. And you could see the pattern. If you watched both conventions, you would see that, you just know that they are two of a piece. Yes. So these are people who are masquerading as PDP members. And so the PDP is an opposition party and cannot and will not become an appendage of or subservient to the APC. Those who truly love and want to support the president should do well to leave other political parties and join the president's party. Any political hybridization is impossible. It's not grafting. It's not in agriculture where you graft things. Political hybridization is an impossibility. If it is possible on any other platform, not the People's Democratic Party, as the umbrella and the broom are not coherent together. You don't find them in the same part of the house. I don't see who keeps a broom the same place he keeps an umbrella. You can fold your umbrella into your bag, you can put it in your traveling bag, you can carry it on you. I don't see people carrying broom around. So the umbrella and broom cannot coexist in the same space. So if those symbols do not coexist, their members should not and will not coexist in the same place. We reassure all our supporters and Nigerians that the Kabiru Turaki-led National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party will continue to take all necessary steps to rescue our party from the claws of self-seeking and anti-democratic forces who are determined to hold our party for the APC. This shall not happen. It shall not come to pass. Neither shall it happen. A bid to just get everyone. Well, no, this is the time to rebuild. The membership of a political party is a very important thing. And you know that most of the youths are out of their base. And a lot of people on political matters, whether they live in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, they want to really register and make impact where they are back home. So if they don't have access, which is why what we intend to do now to remedy that is to provide the contact number of the people, the state chairman and state officers. So if people around, so if I'm living in Abuja or living in Lagos and I want to register in Akwa Ibom, I don't need to physically go to Akwa Ibom. I call my state chairman. He says, which local government are you from? He mentions, he will give me the ward registration agent in my ward. And that way I can still be registered while still living in Lagos without going. Why are we doing so? Data fidelity is very important. We are making sure, and people are giving you their name. People are giving you their real ages. People are giving you sensitive information. And so we must treat this data. So we protect this data, both on the front end and the back end, to make sure that people can trust this platform to give information, which is why we are not opening to everyone. Because the people who open, their challenge is when you finish opening and you get the 36, 48 million, you now need to come and clean it up because you're going to have a lot of repetition, you're going to have a lot of false data. And so the cleaning up process would now be more onerous than the process. So we prefer to go slow, but make sure that this number we've given you are verifiable. We know where they are. We have statistics that can reach them. And lucky enough, phone number is part of it. So meaning that as we do this, we're also mining their phone numbers so that we can reach out to them. So, bad news. It means that we may not need to be announcing things. We may just need to reach them directly on phone. And that could reduce the amount of money available to the press, you know. So, but it creates fidelity. It creates communication, internal communication channels. So, before we admit a data, and the fact that you've registered, there are some registrations, there are more than 638,000 registrants that are still hanging. Because we must certify, we must check the name to be sure that you didn't just put any 11 numbers. We must certify that this person truly exists. I don't know if you understand, because immediately you become a member of the party, you have rights that must be protected. And so you don't just get online and you register and it finishes. No. Before we approve, there's still, there's a whole unit in the organization department that is going through to proof these people, to be sure that, one, these are not, you are not using somebody's picture, you understand? You're not using another person's name, and we're putting all of that together. Okay, clearly, which is why I made a distinction. There would always be light and darkness, there would always be good and bad, there would always be white and black, existing on polar ends. And so people would have to make a choice. There are people who consciously know that something is bad and they do it. And so which is why we have been publicizing so that, and I'm sure that there's no Nigerian alive today who does not know the difference between, assuming both were equal, I'm sure there's no Nigerian, there's no judge, no justice, no truck pusher who doesn't know the difference between the two PDPs. And so if people voluntarily want to join the APC through another platform, then it's fine for them. But if you want to join the PDP and remain as a member of the opposition that is trying to provide an alternative to the people, then you know where to go. We've made that abundantly clear. Journalists, all of you know, you saw them, you know, and they have not hidden what their intentions are. So for us, what we are certain about is the fact that, would there be reconciliation? There's nothing impossible. Are we looking forward to it? If it comes. But are we protecting the mandate? 4-point-something million people have just expressed confidence in us. And you think we should joke with that? No, we won't. We would protect. Let's see. We are going to the Supreme Court to allow the Supreme Court an opportunity to also write their history. So that whatever happens in this Fourth Republic, no one would escape that, oh, if it had come to me, I would have changed it. No. Everybody meant that has a role to play in saving democracy, we have gone to them. When the Supreme Court will test issues and we'll leave it at that. When the Court of Appeal in Ibadan, we allow my lords to rule. We're in a federal high court where people are suing on different things. No, everybody. Remember, this is not the first time this is happening. It happened in the First Republic. It happened in the Second Republic. It happened in the inchoate Third Republic. People had a role to play. Till today, some previously famous names have become infamous because of their actions at a critical time when their voices were needed. During the Abacha transition, some people who were very well respected today have booked a place, a very conspicuous place in the book of Nigeria's historic infamy because of the role they played. Another opportunity lies, and everyone has a pen in his hand to write where history will record him. Would they record you as one of those who stood up for democracy or one of those who fell along the line? This one is even good. There was a time 5 political parties said no other human being in Nigeria was capable of running. Just the kind of narrative people are running today. People have allowed the Messiah bug to bite them, and they are falling into the temptation of messianic disposition. That is their business. Even if we remain 5, we will continue to stand on this truth, so that when this season is over, and people are beginning to try to explain, to talk about situation ethics, we will tell them there's nothing called situation ethics. You were simply entering the wide path where there is pleasure. Today, immediately you join some parties, your EFCC cases reduces, your problem ceases, you become no problem. But we will stay on this narrow path that will lead to Nigeria's political emancipation and redemption.
Excellent.
Yes.
Sir, please,
welcome.
what becomes of this data if the Supreme Court now affirms the APC appendage as the authentic leadership of the party? What becomes of this information you have? That's one, sir. Then two, sir, other political parties, both the ruling party and others in the opposition side of Nigerian politics, are also canvassing for Nigerians to register on their platform. Is PDP afraid of another opposition like the APC coming to play the alternative party to the ruling APC? Do you have any fear that if this doesn't go your way at the Supreme Court, that another political party like the APC will take over your role as
let me draw our collective attention. The case before the Supreme Court cannot validate the other side. It cannot, because the issues are there. The worst case scenario is that the Supreme Court upholds the judgment of the Court of Appeal. If it upholds the judgment of the Court of Appeal simpliciter without any amendment, it would mean that there is a political party called the People's Democratic Party but without leadership. It would mean that the convention that was done was not upheld. It would also mean that critical people left during the Damagun era had been suspended. And therefore, Damagun and the unsuspended NWC completed their term and a vacuum was created. That would be the purport of that judgment. Now, it is the only thread of legality they are holding on to is that of the judgment of Justice Ogwomo in Federal High Court Ibadan, which a matter that was not prayed for, was not canvassed, was granted gratis, which offends the common sense principle of law that you can't get what you didn't ask. Even God who created us, who knows the intents of our hearts, still demands that in prayer we ask. And the court sits in representative capacity for God, and therefore they cannot act otherwise. But since our duty is not to criticize the court, that's why we're in the Court of Appeal in Ibadan, to handle those issues. So there's no fear about what the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can either overrule the Court of Appeal and the trial court, and that confers legitimacy on us. Because if the Supreme Court agrees with our argument that the matters were internal affairs of the party simpliciter, and just to tell you that just yesterday the Court of Appeal upheld the expulsion of one of the parties that took us to Supreme Court. So it clearly shows that these are people who have not meant well for the party for a long while, masquerading as PDP members. So so that's one party now. You don't know, before we get to the Supreme Court, all of them would have been, because they've had previous issues before now. If that happens, then there's no case before the Supreme Court. They will say that the people, they lack the locus, which is one of the things we are challenging, that they didn't have a local standing to even take us to court in the first instance. And so, if the Supreme Court upholds our argument, that means that everything done in Ibadan stands. If they don't, if they agree with the Court of Appeal and the trial court, then it means everything done in Ibadan is off. And it also means that the issues leading to the suspension of Anyanwu, Ajibade, and the rest is also upheld, because the Court of Appeal said that being an internal affair of the party cannot be within the jurisdiction of this court. And he said, listen, that I have seen that they were suspended via a letter. I have not seen any letter lifting them. And it therefore goes to reason that for people who were suspended on the 1st of November, Anyanwu issued a letter on the 3rd to INEC saying that Abdurrahman had now become the acting national chairman. The question is, on whose authority was Anyanwu capable of convening a meeting as of the 3rd of November? The answer will lie with the court. You see, so that is what we are saying. And we said that the best approach was a resolution, a reconciliation. Else, the party will find itself in a position of a mutually assured destruction. So I needed to clear the path of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court cannot, in their judgment, confer legitimacy, because the issues arising from the appeal before the Supreme Court must arise from the appeal in the court below, just like the tax law. And one of the things at the opposition, the all opposition platforms we belong, was the agreement that we're going to challenge some sections of that. So, for example, we think that it's a legislative overreach for the legislature to constrict parties to just 2 out of 3 or many sections. At the end, because if we allow at the end, someday they will constrict us to 1, and that will mean you have no alternative. And so that is playing and prying into the realm that the Constitution has allowed for political parties to have. As for INEC, you would recall that the issue started with the date of election. They now brought a lot of things back and all of that. But you see, this situation we found ourselves is a mind game. Everything, including the electoral umpire, is suspected to be acting. Every state apparatus is suspected to be acting the playbook of an uncontested elections with the president. If not one state actor can be. The general perception, if you mind the perception of Nigerians, you come to the irrefutable conclusion that majority of Nigerians think that this election is over. I go to interviews and I see top journalists say, but is there anything you can do? It looks like the election is over. And this is happening more than very, very many months before the election. And that is what is called electoral authoritarianism, where elections are just a date on the calendar, but the result had been known months before. And that is what they are trying to do. That is why, look at the pressure. I saw my friend Bolaji Abdullahi issuing a statement yesterday about the pressure that INEC is under to deal negatively with ADC. That is why you saw the problems in Labour Party. You've seen the problems in PDP. You've seen the problems in ADC. You're seeing the problem. Accord had no issue until Adeleke went there. I mean, so the desire, the quest, the hunger for a one-party state is unimaginable. And it has the capacity to destroy democracy. Because immediately elections become coronation, where everyone preempts the exact outcome of that election, then there is absolutely no reason for people to still move on with that election. Which is why the way we are going, if all state apparatus, and I've said that Leonard Senior Advocate Amupiton should recall that before him, there have been many umpires in this country. And long after they left, history has been the unbiased, history and posterity has been the unbiased judge of human conduct. So he has the opportunity today to determine whether he wants to be remembered as a man of upright capacity who fought for democracy, or he wants to go down. And he has copious examples of both who have acted in both directions. And so he should know. There are names today you mention in Nigeria, and people don't allow your children to pass the door. There are other names you mentioned in this country, and people say, oh, come, your father, your mother was a good person. They should remember that the ultimate judge of human conduct, apart from, there are three courts: the court of God, the court of law, and the court of public opinion. One we only know when we die, and when the man is happy or angry, which is the court of God. The court of law is speaking, and we cannot fault them when it gets to the apex level. But the court of public opinion, they are receiving the opinions daily.